Hello, my name is Matt Sullivan, and in this presentation, we're going to go over some of the aspects of what it entails to be a parent and what couples should contemplate actually before becoming a parent. So, in the starting slide, I thought it'd be nice to start off with a picture of Shakespeare and his famous quote, "To be or not to be." So, the first thing that I thought was important to note was that as humans, as children of God, we are meant to have children. It says in Genesis 1:28 to be fruitful and multiply and subdue the earth. Um, in my opinion, having children is a gift from God. And it's also something that should not be taken lightly. And as couples and as someone that has children, it's something that needs to be taken very seriously because there's so much that goes in, that is involved with raising children. So starting off, some of the concerns that people or couples are going to have to deal with mainly revolve around the costs it takes to raise a child, the sacrifices that have to be made to proficiently raise the child to be a productive member of society, and also the ability to raise a child. Some people just aren't cut out to have children. So starting with money, which I think is maybe the primary concern for most young couples or anyone that wants to start a family, especially in today's day and age when jobs are harder to get and children are increasingly becoming more expensive. So the first quote that I used was from an academic article written by Edwards, Marr, and Gray, and it's taken from statistics from the USDA, and this was statistics formed from the 1980s, back in the Reagan days when the economy was kind of booming and people could afford children. And over 30 years ago, the average cost for boys was $37,274, and for girls, $35,788, and that was taken on a scale from conception to the age 18. So if you take that and then you extrapolate it now to here in 2017, well over 30 years, those numbers are much higher. It's true that families' happiness and love is not predicated on money, but when families are constantly struggling just to get through the day, constantly struggling to feed their families, or just to provide some forms of entertainment, it weighs a heavy toll. Growing up, I had times when my family was low on money, and you feel it. You can see the hurt in the parents' eyes, and the children are affected by it. So as you can see, that the cost just to raise one child from birth to 18 is substantially high, and to not be ready for it, you could be putting yourself in a hole right off the bat. So in this slide, it's just a breakdown from the USDA and the statistics they had. It was a two-part statistical test that they ran, and these are the numbers they came out with. I'm not great with math. I've tried looking at these numbers myself, but to conclude, what they've come up with is the prices that I've already said. The boys at $37,000 and the girls at $35,000, which in today's age is a lot higher. So, and then the second part is sacrifice. And as we all know as Christians, sacrifice is that the ultimate sacrifice from Jesus, because he loved us, is that we have the ability for everlasting life. And made in his image, we must also be willing to sacrifice for our children. And I think this one is usually overlooked, that in some cases parents aren't really ready for. I remember having my first child. I almost completely forgot what it was like to wake up and feel like I've had a good night's sleep, because almost every child will wake up 2 to 3 times a night. You have to get up, you have to change them, rock them, feed them, and this goes on for a while. And it doesn't quit when they're babies. I mean, this goes on into their early ages, and then when they're older, when they're out all night, now you're sitting there wondering where they are, or when they're going to come home, type deal. See what other sacrifices that need to be made. As a dad, and as a husband, I was used to always watching what I wanted on TV, and now with my young daughters, I went from watching maybe like UFC type of shows to now singing every song from Moana and Frozen word for word. Not to say that it's a bad thing, but I sacrifice what I used to do to now doing what they do, because as a parent, you want your children to always be happy. And then another big aspect is time. Children take up a lot of time. Simply when me and my wife were younger, we'd get up, we'd go to work, we'd come home, we'd either go out to dinner or just stay there and make something. It was easy, simple tasks. Now waking up is it's a lot more difficult. We got to figure out how we're gonna get the children ready, who's gonna make the lunches, who's gonna take them to school, who's gonna pick them up from school, who's gonna watch them if I'm at work. Luckily for me, my wife has taken on the role of a stay-at-home mom, and we have developed into a sort of a nuclear family role where I feel like things are working out much greater. Unfortunately for many couples in today's society, that's not an option, and families are forced to, both parents having to work jobs and consider things like daycare and relying on other family members. So time really becomes a critical aspect of raising children. And ability. When it comes to the ability of raising children, this is something that no one can ever really answer for you. It's just something that you need to know if you're ready for yourself. And as we can see, that what's happening more and more today is that certain things like moms or dads, single motherhood, even single fatherhood, parents leaving, divorced. In our book, excuse me. In our book, it shows that about 44% of all births occur to unmarried women, showing that the single motherhood is on the rise, just like many other things, like many other negative aspects of the postmodern type of relationships, and that has subsequent effects on children. So when it comes to the ability of raising children, in my opinion, it's not always like, no one's ever really going to be ready to go and ready to be a parent. The idea is just, are you ready enough? Have you done your homework? Have you done your research? Do you have an idea of what you're in for? Because being a parent is a lot harder than it seems to be. So the evolution of parenting. In my opinion, the major changes in parenting have gone from a nation that was under God, and we had this moralistic view of the nuclear family, man, wife, children, and we had a laid out plan from Christian values, and not only Christian values, but all values, like most religious values. Excuse me, I got cut off there. But most religious values would give couples a good sense of what it takes to raise a productive family. Of course, now in the postmodern, it's more of the differences that I've seen is in conception, the age at which conception occurs, and also the lack of accountability. So the changes I've seen is you can see everywhere, social media, the conception from back in the day, it was you get married, you have a good profession, you build a house, have the ability to raise children, and then you have children. In today's world, it's more teen pregnancies are glorified on television. Same-sex couples can artificially be inseminated with a stranger's child and have the ability to raise families. Not to say that that is bad. I'm just saying that the nuclear family has changed into anybody and everybody can have children when they please. And accountability, I believe, is just out the window due to if you don't want to be pregnant anymore, or your significant other leaves you, just go get an abortion. Wipe your hands clean of it. So, on the other side of that, the one positive part of that is to people who weren't at one point able to have children now are given the opportunities to have children and raise a family. So the disadvantages that I've seen in the 21st century modern or 21st century postmodern type of families are technology. The first is technology. So the advantages of technology is, dads or moms who have jobs and have to be taken away from their families a period at a time. You can still be face to face with your children and wife, speak on a daily basis, to where that wasn't really an option back in the day. You're always aware of where your children can be as long as they have their smartphone on. You can just look it up on your computer, see where they are, and it's a nice little tracking device to be able to find your kids. And as far as childhood illnesses and their well-being, you always have Google right there to look it up if you need to have answers quickly. As far as the medical advances, we have vaccines now. People, like I said earlier, are able to get pregnant where they weren't able to get pregnant before, and like certain diseases and mental disabilities are now treatable to where they weren't, post the 21st century. So some of the another advantage of the government assistance, families that are, in hard spot or low income, are now given help. They're, no children left behind. Children are allowed to go to school. They're given the opportunity to go to school and be fed, and no one has to go hungry, as well as kind of just make sure everybody has a chance at succeeding through academics and in the family life. So some of the disadvantages, technology, which can be an advantage, can also be a disadvantage. You can try to teach your kids as well as you can, or instill your moral values into them, but that's not going to stop them from being able to see whatever they want when they want on the internet. Facebook and Twitters have ruined lives from cyberbullying, and jobs are lost, parents lose jobs, and also temptations from just like such things as infidelity, like Ashley Madison type things. So yeah, one click away. So there are some disadvantages to technology. And then, in my opinion, the biggest one is the secularism. It's pretty obvious that we are a nation that is moving away from God and instilling new sort of moral acceptance and tolerance of what once was considered wrong now is considered right, and what once was considered right is now considered wrong. To try to raise your children with Christian values and with what we believe is considered an abomination. You can be outcasted as a bigot because it just doesn't fit with the average norm of today. And then also, just like technology, government assistance itself has its disadvantages. People that the idea was to help people through tough times, and instead of being I believe Dinesh D'Souza once said, it was a ladder to help people climb up, has turned into a rope that people are now hanging from a noose. Because as you can see, that was written in Zuckerman in an academic article that the welfare system alone has gone up to $5 trillion in hundreds of programs since 1965. More and more people are becoming reliant on the government instead of taking accountability and trying to raise their family on their own. And with that, not only is that family is suffering from it, but everybody suffers from it because we all pay into it to try to help, which is good, except for it starts to become detrimental when people have the ability to work and provide for the family, yet if they're getting it for free, why would they? So I know it seems like it goes pretty quickly. I try to get as much in as I could, but I just feel like perhaps in some ways we've improved, and becoming parents and has advantages in today's, and some things are easier, but also we are failing in many aspects, and becoming a parent has become perhaps much harder than it used to be. So thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you have time to read through most of the notes that I was up there. I just tried to give a quick abbreviation.